Now 250,000. Now, but to get 275. High, but to get 275. 3. Now 300,000. Now 3 1/4, 325. High, but to get 3 1/4, but to get 325. Now half. Now, but to get 300. And hello again from Lincoln Center in Dallas, Texas, North Dallas, at the intersection of the LBJ Freeway and the Dallas North Tollway here, just across from the Galleria and the whole Hilton complex. So welcome to the Mike McGavel Jones Show. We welcome each and every one of you to the show. Every week we have a broadcast that we do, and every once in a while we'll do a best of series. Best of. Well, today we have a best of series, but not really. This is going to be a unique conversation. We are going to talk about America's Auction Academy and the folks that are behind the scenes that make things happen, and some historical information about the school. So we're very excited to have Scott Swenson from Austin, Texas. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Mike. Great to be here.
And Lori Jones, the Vice President and Administrator for the school.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
You bet. And we're going to talk about what the school is all about. For people who don't know about auctioneers and how auctioneers become auctioneers, this is kind of the your one-stop shop today. And of course, Scott is totally enjoying his headset, and we may breaker 19.
American 297, turn right on 39er, over.
Thank you. That's perfect. That's really very good. Very good. That's very good. Right now, there's an airplane going sideways. So America's Auction Academy started out as Texas Auction Academy in 1992, and we had our first class in June of 1992. Those that know the school, you're going to hear some things that you've already heard, but then maybe some things you haven't. Scott has the honor of being one of 2 remaining original instructors, and the other one is me, which tells you that we've outlasted.
We're both very old.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, and I wanted to have you on because we've been friends for 35 years or whatever, and just wanted to have an opportunity to have a sit down and not just talk about the school, but also talk about the auction industry and kind of what's going on in the auction industry. You're in the Texas Auctioneers Association Hall of Fame. You're a past board member of the National Auctioneers Association, and you've contributed a lot to training a lot of students. We've trained, I think the last number I heard was over 3,000 people at the Auction Academy, which is pretty amazing. But I'm going to ask you to just kind of give. I like to talk to people about their life and their history, and so tell me a little bit about where you grew up and kind of how this all came about. Just give me the 40,000-foot view.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in Waco, Texas. Actually, while I was studying at Texas A&M, I went back home and went to a Czech wedding. And at the Czech wedding, they auctioned off the bride's garter. And the auctioneer was a friend of the family, and I asked him the proverbial question, how'd you learn how to do that? And he said, I went to auction school. I said, oh, really? And he said, well, it's in Bryan, Texas. And I was going to Texas A&M at the time. And so I ended up going to Walter Britton's auction school, and that was in 1983.
Wow.
Yeah. Sounds like a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
And anyway, and I graduated 2 years later. I worked part-time as an auctioneer when I was in school, and left college in 85 after graduating. Went to Houston with a real job, and worked part-time as an auctioneer. At the end of about a year, I had did the math, and I had made more money working part-time as an auctioneer than I had in my real job, and so I decided to go into it full-time. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how that all started.
So now you graduated from Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
You were in the Corps.
I was.
Mm-hmm.
1985.
And 85.
Yep.
Wow. So, of course, I know some of this stuff, but I like to hear it. So you come back, you decide you're going to go full-time in the auction business. What was your, give us some background as far as who you worked for and kind of how we got here.
Yep. Got asked to come back to Waco and work with Ronnie Garner and Associates, and worked with Ronnie and his crew for a couple of years, and then basically went out on my own and worked in Waco for a number of years, and then moved to Austin and married my lovely wife,
who also went to A&M.
Yes, and so we've lived actually west of Austin in a little town called Lakeway ever since then, and we done all kinds of auctions over that period of time. Done a lot of real estate auctions. Now we specialize more in business liquidations, about anything you can imagine: manufacturing, retail, liquidations, rental companies, sound and lighting, movies, movie props, all kinds of things.
So that always beckons back to the movie thing, because I know that you, over the years, you were very involved in Civil War reenactments, and I've seen you in your scruffy face sitting around a campfire, and you have a great love for history.
You always have. I've always loved history, and I've gotten involved in living history, reenacting. I don't really do it that much anymore, but do it through the Texas Military Forces Museum at Camp Mabry. Has a big living history group there, and do a lot with them. And that kind of rolled over into a role in being technical consultants in some movies and films. We did the Alamo IMAX movie. We did Glory. We did Last of the Mohicans, James Michener's Texas, and that was always fun. And it was fun mostly when I was a single man, because it's really hard if you're married and especially have kids that are young. So about the time we had our first child, we stopped doing any movie work, because it usually puts you out on location somewhere for at least a month.
Sure.
Away from home and business, and that just became untenable. But it did allow us to get our kind of foot in the door with doing some movie auctions, and we've done a number of those over the years, and they've been a lot of fun.
You've also helped raise a lot of money for a lot of charities over the years. You've been very successful as a benefit auctioneer. Tell me a few of your highlights.
Well, we got the chance, 12, 14 years ago, I can't remember now exactly, to go to San Miguel, Mexico, and work for Patronato Pro Niños and for the Children International. And we used to go down there and stay with some friends, and that was a lot of fun. Really had a good time with those people for a number of years. I started doing I did the Cattle Barons auction in Detroit probably 15 years ago, and have ever since. And that kind of blossomed into, at one time I was going to Detroit to do about 7 benefits a year. and so that's just crazy how Texan ends up in there. And mostly it was the Cattle Barons. People decided they had to have an auctioneer from Texas come be their auctioneer. And so oddly enough, the people in Detroit, for the most part, have no concept of Western wear or cowboy hats or boots or things like that. They're getting better, but anyway, we've done a lot of auctions up there and other parts around the country. But
the internet probably helped them.
Yes, it did.
And we were fortunate enough to go down to Mexico with you a couple of times, and you and I had the great opportunity to meet Doc Severinsen, who was the musical director and band leader for Johnny Carson many years, and he really is that tan.
Yeah, he's a fixture in San Miguel.
Yeah, so that was fun. I also know that you worked with Andy Roddick, the great tennis player.
Yes, got to do one with him, and Sir Elton John was there that night, and he came up on stage. We let him have the microphone. Be introduced. We were selling his villa in Venice, renting it, I guess you'd say, for a week for the charity, and he told about it, and then he threw me the microphone.
Very trusting.
Yes, and thank God I caught it. But
and then and he threw it in the air to you.
Yeah, he tossed it. It was an easy toss. It should have been caught, but as that's flying through the air, and there's 3,500, 4,000 people watching you. You just
That's when you drop it.
It's when you usually drop it. So,
but you caught it.
Yeah, I caught it. It worked out okay, and he was impressed and said, "Nice play" or something like that. And anyway, but yeah, got to be on the stage with a number of pretty famous people over the years, I guess.
So years ago, and when you were working with Ronnie Garner and his crew, that really was an opportunity for us to meet as well, because I worked a few sales. We did one at Fort Hood selling the recreational equipment and things. Remember that?
You've got a good memory.
I do.
It's a long time ago.
I was. And we also had the opportunity to did some farm equipment, some farm sales.
Yeah.
And that's really where you and I kind of bonded initially, to the point where when I decided to start the auction school around 90, probably 90, 91, it was 91, I guess it was, and I was trying to figure out who needed to be involved with the school and who had the temperament, the professional touch. You got to remember, we were pretty young kids doing this. I don't think either one of us was 35 years old, so we're probably in our early 30s. And in fact, we'll see a picture in a little bit of the original staff. But I knew that because you came from kind of an educational background, historical background, I knew you appreciated what we did, and it made sense that you be a part of it. I think you were probably, in fact, I know you were the youngest instructor that was a part of the original crew, because the original crew we had Joe Small, of course, who we just lost in January, February of this year. Pat Long, who is still selling, and probably Pat, I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's in his 60s, and Pat sells every week at Mannheim Auto Auction and some other auto auctions. I mean, he is a mainstay auctioneer.
Pat's a stud.
Yeah, he's a past president of the Texas Auctioneer Association, just and a great guy. He's a great family man, just a super guy, one of my favorite people. And when we talk to each other, it's just like we talk to each other over breakfast, and it's always the same. We had Jack Ogle, who passed away a few years ago, and he really enjoyed teaching at the school. And in looking at the picture, and I honestly didn't realize that Ronnie Garner was in the original group, and in that original picture. And he wasn't with us for that long, probably 2 or 3 years, but we always appreciate any contribution we get from anyone. And B.L. Woolley from Little Rock, of course, B.L. he's been gone for quite some time now. And his son, of course, Brad, has been with us teaching for, gosh, I don't know, 15 years or so, maybe closing on 20. But he's been the chairman of the licensing division in Arkansas for many years, and he's been a mainstay. He served on the national board and been the past president of Arkansas. And then his son, Brad.
Young Brad.
That's what we call him.
Yeah, Young Brad. So Young Brad is now past president of Arkansas, and he's a great auctioneer as well.
He is.
Yeah, he's got a family going, and he has not taught at the school yet, but somebody's going to have to. I mean, you and I are not going to last forever, right? And was there anyone else that I'm forgetting from the original group?
Was Danny Green original?
No, Danny came in a year or two. Danny Green came in probably 2 years later, but he was with us a pretty good while.
Long time.
It was a long time. If you think of one.
Who is it that works for Ritchie Brothers?
I don't know. You'll have to think about that one. But anyway, and we'll see the picture here in a few minutes from 1992.
That'll
going on 30 years. Anyway, so fast forward, you get in the business, you've done all these great things, you've been involved. I know you're a huge advocate and have helped with the Alamo a lot. You've done fundraisers, the Daughters of the Confederacy, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, we've done some work with the Daughters of the Republic, and at the Alamo we've done not as much as we'd like to. Probably like to try to do some more work for them sometime soon. They don't have events, as often as we'd like, but we've gotten the opportunity to work with a number of good historic organizations, including Texas Military Forces Museum in Austin at Camp Mabry.
Yep. Of course, we started out as Texas Auction Academy, and I was kind of torn, not very much, but a little bit, of changing the name to America's Auction Academy, except for the fact that I'm extremely patriotic, and I believe that America is the greatest place in the world to live, and Texas is the greatest state to live in. But we wanted to kind of increase our audience and be more of a national and international school instead of, there's a couple of auction schools out there that are locally based, either statewide or, we've got good friends that operate the Nashville school, and we have, I attended the Missouri auction school, but all we have a great relationship with all the schools. We don't have a bad relationship with anybody, and I really don't look at it as competition. I really believe that there's a place for everybody. We've got the folks up at Reppert that are good friends of ours. The Cruz family has just purchased it back, and so they're back involved in the Reppert School in Indiana. And then we've got our good friend Paul C. Bear up at Worldwide College of Auctioneering in Iowa, and so, there's plenty of schools around, but it is different today, and I want to talk about that just a little bit. Now, I'm a big proponent of the live auction. That's what I do. I'm a live auctioneer. I like the chant. I do it every week. There's not a week that goes by that I don't do something with the chant. And I know that you have changed the direction a little bit, or a lot. So tell me about what you're doing.
Well, in the last 2 years, I think we've had one live commercial auction, and that was because our seller wanted it specifically, and they requested it, and we honored those wishes. The majority of the people buying at that auction ended up bidding online, but be that as it may, we've really pushed over to mostly online only. Most of the auctions we're doing, as I said, are commercial liquidations, commercial equipment. I too love the chant. When you invited me to, where were we last year? We did that big liquidation somewhere.
Up in Oregon.
Oregon,
yeah.
Yes,
It was a transformer manufacturer. It's a
2-day auction.
It was like taking us back to the old days.
That was a lot of stuff to sell in a couple of days, and I really had a good time. That was really a lot of fun, and I too, I miss it. I miss the live auctions. I really do, and our crew misses it too.
Sure.
But it came down to just numbers for us, and the advantages that you get with online auctions, and it's proved
it's working for you,
and it's working for us, and it's it comes down to we've got to put the most money we can into our seller's pocket when the day is done, and the expenses that we were having in live auctions, we couldn't warrant them. The expense. It wasn't paying for itself, we went from live auctions to live and online simulcast auctions, and that just
which I do quite a few of.
Morphed into the majority of the buyers are online. They come down there sometimes, inspect, and then go back home to bid. And it's and I think it's just it's a sign of the times with our society and our culture, and people being willing to go someplace for a live auction. And a lot of times our buyers are coming from hundreds of miles away, and or more, and for them to come for a day and then maybe not get anything is just proven it's a lot easier for them to sit at their desk at their office, watch the auction, or bid in their pajamas at midnight or whatever.
So what we're seeing with the auction school is we have certain people that come because they want to sell cars. Some of them want to sell heavy equipment. Some of them want to sell livestock, and then the benefit fundraising. There's a big component for the live auction. So what we are doing, though, is revamping and that's something that you and I will be talking about in the near future, is working on the curriculum, changing the curriculum to where we will always teach the chant.
Sure.
We just had Morgan Hobson on our show. She's the new international auctioneer champion.
Yeah.
They do live auctions, and they do real estate auctions. That's their thing. And of course, we couldn't be more pleased to have the international women's champion for 2019, and then the men's champion in 2018, Barrett Bray, who went through our school, to have him as the international champion. So that, it's pretty daunting to think about it, because there are so many well-trained auctioneers that come from other schools too, and so for us to get back-to-back champions, I'm pretty amazed by it, and it keeps that fire burning for the chant. The funny thing about auction school is when you look at the number of hours, we put in 83 hours at our class, and so a person can come on a Friday and leave the next Friday. We went to basically an 8-day course and try to get them in and out. Now, we do make some exceptions for other states where we'll have 10 days involved, okay?
Yes.
That's a requirement for some of the states, Georgia being one of them, and there's a couple more that require more hours. We're kind of in a weird situation right now with the different states and regulations, because you have some states that are regulating, half of the United States regulates auctions, okay? Basically, it's Texas East, Now, New York does not, but now they may have a permit or a license you have to have in the city. They may have that. I don't know. But when you get New Mexico West, there's almost no state license laws regulating auctions. However, if we go east of here, there's a lot of there's litigation going on in Tennessee. There's a big bunch of law changes in relation to online auctions. We went through this. We went through a law change a half a dozen years ago, and then Texas Department of License and Regulation, for whatever reason, never implemented the rules. And then 2 years later,
They got it changed back.
They got it changed back, and that was done primarily by the large auction companies that were opposed to requiring each of their contractors to have a license. And then also the online, they just didn't want to do it. And so now I'm hearing that some of the states have made their law to where they do regulate online auctions, but they're exempting out some of the larger major companies, like the larger collectible companies. I'm talking about major companies that are doing tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in business. So I guess they realized that the only way they were going to get that passed, it's kind of like what we went through with eBay 25 years ago. Because we went through this whole thing, and I was the guy with the arrows in the back, because I was the one representing the industry, and their lobbyists were fighting us tooth and nail, and they'd bring in 8 attorneys, and it was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen, but we live in an interesting time, because even in the state of Texas, our Governor Abbott, and I think Abbott's I think he's a fine governor. I think he represents the people of Texas well, but he does recommend deregulation for a lot of professions, and that's where I do oppose the governor, and would go to Austin to argue that, because we don't need, the plumbers are having this problem right now. The plumbers are in dire straits because of potential deregulation, and we can't have that in the auction business, I don't believe, especially in the live portion. Online, I just don't know that we're going to get that changed in a direction that is going to please. You can't please everybody.
No, you sure can't, and I agree. I think we're going down a one-way street.
Well, you put that quite well. So we'll hold up on that for just a minute. So, Lori, you run the school.
Yes.
You were extremely, I would say, your work in creating curriculum 15, 17 years ago, whatever it was. I can't remember
That I
exactly.
became involved with the school.
Right.
2002.
Okay, good math.
Yes.
Well, that's 17 years.
Very good.
And so you rewrote the curriculum at the time, fresh curriculum, and then you have operated the school ever since. So why don't you give your background just a little bit, because of course I know your background, but just a little bit about you.
Well, my background is in law. Once I finished high school, I thought that I wanted to get a law degree, and I started college heading that way. I was working as well, so I took a position as a paralegal, and didn't finish a law degree, but I did work as a paralegal for about 11 years. I'm very detailed, I'm very structured, which lends well to what my role is with the academy. I do all the day-to-day operations, the legal portion, which I don't think a lot of people realize how much there is, the regulation.
Nobody realizes the work you do. It's unbelievable.
I mean, we are regulated by the Texas Workforce Commission. We had to apply and receive a certificate of approval. It has to be renewed every year. I have an annual audit every year. I send out surveys and do stats and reports at the end of every year. So there's a lot to it besides just registrations and running the sessions and doing the schedule and working with the instructors, including Mike, of course. He's the director and president of the academy. So my background in law and legal has helped me a lot in that regard. When I met Mike and when I began working with the school, it's so funny, I had only been to benefit auctions. I really did not realize that, the how big the auction industry was, several billion-dollar industry. And so it was really interesting to get involved and start doing auctions. I think the first one that I actually went to, besides running the academy, was in Nebraska. The what is it? The Cushman motor scooter plant auction, and that was my introduction into the other world. And so I learned a lot about it. And
that was a baptism by fire.
It was.
That was a three-month setup organization. It was unbelievable, and it was quite a historical event, because that plant was over 100 years old, and they were third generations in the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, working there. It was the #1 story in USA Today for the state. It was on all the television networks. It was just quite an
that was
undertaking.
in 2003, and that was the beginning, I think. I don't know, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, of doing live and online simulcasts,
it was
like at the same.
Yep, and if my memory serves correctly, which it does, when you do these projects, when you're that involved, you just kind of remember a lot about it. And I do remember that was one of our very first live online simulcast. We had Carl Roddy working that sale, and he was involved in it, and Dina from Minnesota. They came down and were very hands-on in running the online portion. Eddie Haynes from Oklahoma City, Hall of Fame auctioneer, and a former instructor at the auction school. He handled the real estate portion of that auction, and then Gary Ryther, one of my better friends, who was one of my instructors in auction school. Gary Ryther, Hall of Fame national auctioneer from Lawson, Missouri. He was my right hand guy, and he had sold a lot of machinery. He was known as a machinery auctioneer. He'd worked for several companies, and really for me, it was an opportunity to have Gary. It wasn't a payback, but it was just like it was very cool to have one of your instructors that meant so much to you, to be sitting next to you and participating in the auction. So it was just fun. It was just a fun deal.
Hard work, but a great auction.
But the other piece of that was the online bidding and this was at the beginning. This is, you got to remember, that's almost 20 years ago. Drove the prices up about 25 to 30% above and beyond the normal sale prices. We were selling things that would normally sell for $50 and $75 for $200. So I knew right then, this was the way it was going to be from now on. Of course, back then it cost a lot more to put on an auction because the technology piece was expensive. The technology companies were, they weren't meaning to gouge, but they were trying to recover cost of creation. And that, it would cost you $2,000 or $3,000 to put on an online auction. That today, really the base doesn't cost hardly anything, and really it's about the amount of sales you have that you're paying for. So it's just a different rodeo. So you were born in Farmington, is that right?
Farmington, New Mexico. Yes.
Yeah.
And Dad worked for Halliburton, so we traveled a lot. Lived in Colorado, New Orleans, Big Springs, Texas, Duncan, Oklahoma. Finally landed in Gainesville, Texas, where I went to high school.
Well, you lived in Wichita Falls.
Yes.
And your family, you've got a lot of sisters.
I have 4 sisters.
Yeah.
There's 5 girls.
So between your mother and the sisters, a lot of health care involvement, nurses.
Yes. My mother's a nurse and 2 sisters and a niece. I love the idea of being a nurse, but
couldn't handle blood.
Couldn't handle the blood or the needles.
That's kind of a killer of the deal.
Yeah. Grew up in Gainesville, basically. Moved there when I was in middle school, I believe. Graduated from high school there. Worked at a pharmacy for probably 18 years. Even when I was going to college, I would go back, and I was working for a law firm, and I would go back on Saturdays and work at the pharmacy because the owner, and it was a small town pharmacy, he was like a father or a grandfather, I guess.
and we both basically grew up in Gainesville,
Right.
so we know a lot of the same people. And Watts Brothers was, they were known for pharmacies. You had Watts Prescription Shop, and then you had the drive-through, and then Watts Brothers downtown. When you live in a town of 8 to 10,000 people, you pretty much know everybody, either good or bad. And that was pretty much the experience.
Well, and honestly, my first occasion to meet you was because of a lawsuit. The law firm that I was with, you were appointed as a receiver in the divorce to take the property and sell it at auction.
And we did.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah. So what do you, while we're on the subject of the auction school, what do you enjoy the most about the school? Because you do enjoy it.
Well, I mean, the day-to-day operations are the day-to-day operations. What I enjoy the most is when we have our sessions. When we start a session and the people come in and that I've spoken to either by phone, a lot by email, when I really get to put a face to a name and get to know them. There's such diversity when it comes to the people that attend. We will have an 18-year-old that just graduated from high school, or a 22-year-old out of college, or maybe on break from college, and then we'll have we had a lady, she stands out in my mind. She was about 85 years old. Her name was Rose. And she was a real estate broker or agent. I don't remember, but
she was a real estate. I think she was a broker.
I mean, and we've just, it's just, that age difference, and then the background, the diversity. You'll have lawyers, you'll have a truck driver, you will have an accountant, you will have.
Well, in the last class, for example, we had a lady from Tyler, who's the former mayor of Tyler.
Right.
Well, 20 years before that, we had the sheriff of Smith County, and his office is in Tyler. So, and she knew J.B. Smith. Ironically, his name is Smith. But J.B. Smith, he was the sheriff for a long time, probably longest standing sheriff in Smith County. But what he did with the auction thing is he went back and he raised money for all the charities in town. And so he was known as the guy. If you wanted to have a fundraiser, you called J.B. Smith. He's the sheriff. So it was great PR for him. And and he was a great advocate of our school. But I mean, I was thinking, you cannot people can't imagine the different types of people that come through that auction school. I mean, seriously, everything from a banker to a truck driver, and then we have a young man. I say young man; he's probably my age, maybe a little younger. That was 2 classes ago. He's an actor.
Yes.
Down in Houston, Texas, and he and I are friends on Facebook. We follow him really close. But he just did a movie with Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson. What was the name of the movie?
Highwayman?
Well, he did Highwaymen, and then he did another one. He just did 2 movies, really back to back. He also is performing as Robin Williams. He was on the Reel, REEL, cable network as the older Robin Williams.
David Bourne.
David Bourne.
Mm-hmm.
And so
He
we'll give
plays
it.
the Louisiana sheriff.
That's
in
correct.
Highwayman.
That's right. Yeah, very good. So anyway, and David's a great guy, and he just and he brought, he kind of held back in class. He wanted to
did.
perform. He had to catch himself, because he would get excited, and then you'd see a little Robin Williams coming out of him. But, but we've had a lot of cool people.
And I have to mention, because you had Morgan Hobson, the new international champion, on a previous show, and I recall her class. She's a violinist. She's quite the musician, and her class had some
classically trained,
yes. And there were some guitar players, keyboard players. There was just this group in her class that were very musically talented. And on the very last day, they said, "We want to perform a song for you, for the instructors." And it was amazing. She played the violin, and one played the guitar, and they sang. And so things like that, it's just the diversity and the talent and getting to know people, and it enriches my life.
Well, and I think it makes life just overall interesting. And of course, when our instructors come back, it's like a reunion 3 times a year. Now we'll see most of them at a state convention or something along that line. But some of these folks, we only see them 3 times a year. And we've been seeing them 3 times a year for some of us a long time. I was just thinking, Lori, you've sat through about almost or right at 50 classes.
Yes.
That's a lot of sitting through classes. And then Scott, you've been teaching anywhere from 1 to 2 days for the 27 years, right at 27 years.
He's missed very few.
Yeah, there's not
just a couple.
Well, it was probably health reasons. You had a couple spells, and thankfully you're alive to be here.
Thinking back a few moments ago, was Greg Highsmith one of your originals or no?
He wasn't an original, but we started in '92. He came on board in I think 93. He was close. He was
really close. He's on the audio.
I think he was probably Greg Highsmith, who's an international champion auctioneer in his own right, who lives up in Bonita, Oklahoma. He's been with Ritchie Brothers forever. In fact, that's when he left the auction school. He was with us for a good while.
Yeah. And
I remember I was standing next to Greg in Indianapolis in 1994 when he won the international. We literally were standing in the back. Not even that's before they had everybody come up on stage. You didn't even know. You didn't know. They didn't say, "Okay, well, here's the first runner-up, second runner-up, all that stuff." He and I were just standing in the back of the fairgrounds in Indiana, and then boom, he won. And when he came up on stage, he told everyone there that he really felt like that teaching at the Texas Auction Academy and working the chant with the students had really brought him back to the basics to make the difference in winning that competition. So we've had some great people.
I know I gave credit to that when I won state champion in '92 because we were going to make the first audio recording, and I got the drills and the tongue twisters out and looked at those, and unfortunately had not looked at them in a long time, and there's no question in my mind that helped clean up my chant and help with the rhythm, and I give credit. That's why I won state champion that year.
I remember competing with you there. I actually made the top 5. I don't know if you realize this, but if the math is correct, I was in my first state competition in '79 in Austin, Texas, and I think I only made the top 3 once before I won, and it was like 16 years. It was 16 years, and I was just thinking about that. That's why I always tell people never give up. If you want to win a competition,
Absolutely.
you've got, if you're not there, you're not going to win, and you can't get your feelings hurt. I've told that story many times about how in 1996 I took 3rd place in the international competition. My sister won the women's competition that day, and then the next year I didn't even make the top 15. Not even the top 15, because I had a blunder with a ringman in Nashville, and so I didn't even make the 15. And you wait all year long. I mean, if you take 3rd, you just kind of think, hey, I'm on the cutting edge of winning this thing, and then I didn't make the top 15. I was pretty bummed out about that, but then came back the very next year and won. So you can't get discouraged. You can't not show up. You can't get your feelings hurt. You got to rise from the ashes and go at it again, and because it'll work. If it's meant to be, it's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, got to keep going.
Yeah, I still have the video of you winning in '92. I don't know if you know that.
Huh.
I'll have to break that out.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
I have to bring out the beta tape.
It's on VHS.
It is on VHS, actually. But anyway, that's pretty funny. Lori, we have got dates coming up. I know
Yes.
this show is going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, so give me the upcoming dates for our next Auction Academy class at America's Auction Academy.
Okay, so our final date in 2019 is September 20th through the 27th. So
Okay.
that's a Friday to a Friday. And then the first date in 2020 is January 17th through the 24th.
Okay.
And we currently are doing classes at the Radisson in Addison, Texas.
The Radisson and Addison. Everything we do rhymes. It's part of our
I
chant.
like it.
Part of our chant program.
Like it.
It's a pretty easy location to get to. It's only probably 2 exits from where we're sitting right now. What's the website that they need to go to? They can actually sign up online.
Yes, we have. It's americasauctionacademy.com. You can sign up online, pay online. There's also an enrollment application if you prefer to print it out, fill it out, mail it with a check or a money order. That's also an option. The website is very thorough. It should answer any questions that anyone has, but
So if you go to the website, it's going to have registration information. It'll have upcoming dates. We have not
Yes.
established all of the dates for next year yet, but we probably need to do that.
but we will have a June and a September.
Yeah, we always have a June and September class, and it's usually the first or second week in
Right.
June, and I expect it'll be the first week in June.
Right.
And then if you look at the website, it's pretty robust. It has all of our rules, regulations. All the state of Texas with the Workforce Commission is very detailed with their catalog preparation, what they expect from us, and so it's very legalistic, legalese. So if you go there, you're going to see policies that are state mandated. That's all going to be there. The curriculum is going to be there. You're going to see what the classes are. You're going to see what we do in the 83 hours that we do. And it breaks it down. And people need to understand that when you come to auction school, it's called general basic auctioneering. But I can tell you, and I've told people this for years, there's nothing basic about what we teach. We're very detailed. When I went to auction school 41 years ago, whatever it was pretty basic. You learn some basic chant, and then there was very little. There was nothing about sales tax. There was nothing about there was no technology back then. You had a wooden box and clerking sheets and a microphone and if you could afford a solar calculator, really adding machines and stuff like that. Today we have We have vendors come in that will do instruction. For example, the folks with Auction Flex,
Yes.
High Bid, they come in and teach a class. We'll have someone teach marketing, a marketing class. There'll be Scott covers a lot of a lot of the basic stuff, even going back to the original clerking program. And some people would say, well, why would you go back and do the basic stuff that that's so basic that you have technology for today? Well, I can tell you, there's times that you have to go back and you go back to the basics, and I've had to do it. Where the computer, you couldn't take a computer out in the sands of the Red River and without ruining your computer, so you just don't do it. But I mean, literally, when you look at the expertise of our instructors today, and just to name off a few of our, you're going to have to help me too. Remember who all of our instructors are, but we have of course Brad comes in from Arkansas. We have Scott come in from Austin. Rich Sure comes in from Colorado. We have Sherry Sutton, Sherry Boots Sutton, who's the 99 International Auctioneer Champion, the number one female auto auctioneer in the United States. We have Craig and Angie Meyer. Craig, of course, is a world auto auction champion. He went through our school in '98. Angie, his wife. And in fact, they're going to come on the show in the next few weeks or so and talk about all the things they're doing. And Angie just competed in the international competition. She's a state champion. They're both state champions. They won the World Auto Auction Championship together. So they're kind of like that dynamic duo of the auction industry.
Trey Galloway,
who's a former world champion as well, auto auctioneer, also from 1998, came through our auction school.
Philip
Braun, who is in management with Mannheim Auto Auction and also works with me every weekend as we sell cars for Texans Can Cars for Kids. He's my right-hand guy and has been for quite a while now.
Mike Brandley,
and we've had Mike on the show before. He's probably one of the greater minds in the business. He writes a blog. He's an expert witness in many cases related to auctions and auctioneers. And he also is the guy that pretty much runs or is a part of running the Ohio Auction School. And so that we kind of changed I'm very open to people. I don't care who you are, where you work, what you're involved in. If you're the best at something, that's who I want. And Mike, he has a nice career up in Ohio, and he's very well known. But the fact that he was running another auction school had no bearing on it whatsoever. I wanted, and he was blown away when I asked him to teach. But I was very happy to have Mike Brandley join us as part of our instructor staff.
Well, and we have guest speakers fairly often. Barrett Bray, the last year's international champion, and he is a graduate of the Academy. He will be joining as an instructor.
Now, he's already said he's in and planning on being at the next two classes. Now that he's not traveling as the IAC champion, he's freed up somewhat. And of course, and his big feather for him is he wins the IAC, and what does he do? He becomes the voice of Barrett Jackson Classic Car Sales, and it doesn't get much bigger than that. That's one of the largest stages. You've only got about 3 companies that are known as the number one places to buy vintage or classic vehicles or hot rods or whatever. Mecum, of course, is one of them. There's a couple of more that do some of the older cars, and then Barrett Jackson is kind of they're kind of the hammer. And so he got a great opportunity from winning the IAC. And I think that's the springboard that is worth talking about. It's just the fact that you can do something with these contests. And, people go, well, I don't want to have to compete. And hey, you're competing against yourself. And if you want to do something with it, do it. And if you don't. But we're gonna arm you with that information to become a great auctioneer. If you want to become a great auctioneer, I think we've proven that we can do that, and we look forward to continuing. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up? Before I go there, Senor, we will. You're in the Hall of Fame of Texas. You're past president, and you're very involved with the Hall of Fame now. I know you're secretary, treasurer, and chief bottle washer, and yeah. And then and Lori received a great award last year when she was put into the National Auctioneer Association Auxiliary Hall of Fame. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
And you know, the auction profession is a tight knit community. You know, you know everybody, and it's. You know, they say there's 40, 50,000 auctioneers out there. Well, there probably are 40 or 50,000 people who have been through auction school, who do have a diploma. But you boil it down, and I kind of look at it, I often refer to it as kind of like professional golf. You know, you're going to have the guys that make a paycheck every week. And then you're going to have 500 more trying, and they're going to make a living at it. You can make a living in the auction business. You just have to find out what your niche is, whatever it is. There's absolutely no way that you can't make a living in the auction industry if you want to do it. But it requires diligence, hard work, perseverance. You got to have some grit. You got to be able to accept rejection, because you're the ultimate salesperson. We're in the sales business, we're in the marketing business, and we're the people business. And if you can't do those three things, you're probably not going to make it in this business. But if you do enjoy those types of things, you can do it, because the stuff's out there. So,
amen.
In closing, sir.
Well, I would just say that I appreciate, how many years has it been?
27. Yeah.
27 years that I've been involved with the Academy have really been rewarding for me, and I've enjoyed every minute of it, and look forward to several more. I'm not sure it'll be another 27, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, you know, we've been friends for a long time. You know, I have a friend of mine that always says, and he's a friend of yours too, by the way. He says, you know, when you really boil it down, you've really only got 3 or 4 real friends. You know, you can count them on your hand, and they're usually going to carry your casket unless you're in an urn, and then you all get to take turns. But I consider you one of my best friends, and have appreciated all the things that you've done in supporting the school and the auction profession, because it takes people like you to keep it going. And let me tell you, it's easy for somebody to say, you know, I'm tired, or I just don't have time. You know, you kind of make time for the things that matter, right?
Absolutely.
And Lori, thank you for your hard work.
Well, thank you. I enjoy it for the most part. No, and what I mean by that is when I'm not connecting with the students until we get to the session.
Well, I think what you're really saying is the day-to-day stuff is not necessarily fun, but it has to be done.
It's essential, and I have to do it, and I do I know that I do a great job with it. But when we get there and I see the students, and you know, one of the things that I love about the Academy and our program is, we know, as you kind of alluded to, Mike, a little bit ago, not everyone that attends is going to get in the auction business. We want them to. We hope they will, but they won't. We just know that, just like real estate school or anything else. But I truly believe with all my heart they are going to take something away from our school that is going to help them in anything they do. And all the instructors, Scott, I want to thank you too for your passion, because it changes people's lives. Yeah. And we care. We care that much. The sessions are very intense. They're long hours, but we make it interesting and fun. And so again, our next session is September 20th through the 27th. Check out our website. It's a great week and one you'll never forget.
Yeah. I find it interesting to see the people come to the school, and you'll see a transformation in people.
It's amazing.
You'll see them change in their facial expressions, their ability to get up in front of people. It's a great place to go to improve your skills as a speaker, a presenter. If you're trying to sell something, there's no greater way than go through auction school, because it's going to give you new skills that you didn't have before, and probably more faith in yourself, confidence, those types of things.
Well, and the networking. I mean, classes, you know, they stay in touch. A lot of them stay in touch. They create Facebook pages, and you know, just a real quick shout out. We've had a lot of international students. and particularly Ireland
Yes,
in our
we're big in
last
Ireland.
class.
We are big in
2
Ireland.
students, and last year in June, 2 students, and you
Well,
know,
and-
it's incredible.
One of the things that we did too, because of Colm over in Ireland, he and his daughter Marie, they asked us to endorse and support their novice contest for the Irish auctioneers. And it's they don't call it the same thing we do.
IPAV.
Yeah.
I think.
So anyway, it's professional auctioneers and valuers is what they are, valuers. So anyway, they have this competition, and they have just like we do. And so anyway, but when you see them standing up there presenting the novice or the rookie contest, you'll see America's Auction Academy is a sponsor, and we do provide a tuition. We comp a tuition, and so their novice champion they then send to the United States to attend America's Auction Academy. So that's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
And I appreciate the folks in Ireland and South Africa and New Zealand and China
And Mexico.
and Mexico, the folks that have been to the school. We've had people from everywhere.
Britain.
I even had a pilot, a military pilot from Iran in the school. And he presented me with a one of the rugs. You know, they're big rug makers over there. And in fact I was actually holding that rug yesterday. It's really weird. Not a big rug,
But a rug nonetheless.
But a rug
But you
nonetheless.
just have an opportunity to meet such neat, interesting people.
Yep.
And, you know, we never, just don't close any doors.
Yep.
Stay open-minded, and
Yep. Well, you're going to learn something.
you're going to learn.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here today and talking
Thank you.
about America's Auction Academy.
It's been fun.
And so thank you for that. And we'll be back at the auction school before you know it, because it's coming up in about 2 months. On behalf of everybody that's been a part of this one, we appreciate your time joining us on the Mike McGavel Jones Show from Dallas, Texas at Lincoln Center. We look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll have another fascinating show, and hope you enjoyed it. And from Dallas, we bid you adieu.